Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. I'm Justice, and if you've been following along the last few weeks, give or take, you'll know I've been covering the entire Carrie franchise, and today I'm capping it off with The Rage, Carrie 2, which came out in 1999. The film follows Rachel and when her closest friend commits suicide after being manipulated by a group of popular boys for a sex for points game. Quiet and bookish Rachel decides to get back at the guilty parties. Although Rachel falls for sensitive football player Jesse, she still remains determined to punish his friends. When she discovers that she has superhuman abilities, it ups the stakes for her revenge, mirroring a supernatural incident that occurred in the town decades before. And I have to admit, I had a pretty strange experience with this one. I don't hate it by any means, but it's not my favorite in this franchise if I'm being honest, and I can't say it's all that great. There are definitely things the film did that could have been handled way better. That said, I do enjoy the continuation of the Carrie story. It's fascinating to peek back into this universe yet again with another character struggling with telekinetic powers. Did that character really need to be Carrie's sister though? I just don't think so. In its own weird way too, the movie also tries to tackle a real-world issue that was pretty relevant at the time, the Spur Posse, and while it's pulled off with mixed success here, I did find the story itself interesting enough to look deeper into. And for those who don't know, the Spur Posse was a clique of former and current Lakewood High School students from Lakewood, California. The members of the group admitted to competing for points in a long-running game of sexual conquests. Accusations of sexual assault and misconduct against the group was filed by 7 different girls, and on March 18th of 1993, 9 members of the group were arrested by the Los Angeles County Sheriff Department for sex crimes, including sexual assault, lewd conduct, and statutory rape of a 10-year-old minor. When allegations against the Spur Posse came to light, members of the group were invited to talk shows, interviewed for publications, and placed on covers of magazines. They posed for Penthouse and Sassy, a teen girls magazine, which, yes, you unfortunately heard that very right, and many sentiments shared by the media, and a direct quote from one of the headlines was "Boys will be boys," which is a sentiment that was shared in the 90s by a lot of people during this case. It wasn't a big deal, apparently. And this movie clearly weaves in commentary inspired by that case. From everything I read, it blows my mind how underreported the whole situation was, and how the narrative of the boys being the victims is just, it's a gross pill to swallow, and I don't understand that time, and it sucks because I still think we live in this toxic masculinity type era where you don't really believe the victim. It kind of goes without saying, if you're a rich, white, straight guy, you're probably going to get away with whatever crime you commit, and these boys barely got a slap on the wrist. And again, I've said this in other videos, this isn't a true crime YouTube channel by any means, so I don't really have any interest on doing a deep dive into full details about the case. What I will do is I found a YouTube video that goes over it, and I will link that below, but if you're curious, look it up. It's both interesting and a very frustrating case. And those last 2 words, interesting and frustrating, really sum up this movie for me. There are some golden ideas in here for a Carrie sequel, but overall the film just doesn't work thanks to some of the direction and story choices. For one, this sequel never had much of a leg to stand on. It came out over 23 years after the original Carrie, which is a weird time gap to suddenly drop a follow-up. And then to add right on top to make things even messier, the script wasn't written as a Carrie sequel in the first place. Yes, it had the telekinesis angle, but MGM noticed how similar it felt to Carrie and decided to rework the shelved script into a sequel. making Rachel Carrie's long-lost sister, and we discover that Rachel's mother had also slept with Carrie's father, Ralph White, who carries the TK gene, thus explaining why Rachel has the same telekinetic abilities as her late sister. The little talked about family drama of this franchise is extremely funny to me because Ralph is never seen on screen in either film, but is seriously the biggest fuckboy that caused so much of the catastrophes in this franchise, but I digress. In this entry, we have the return of Sue Snell with Amy Irving reprising her role from the original film, becoming a sequel legacy character before that term had ever been coined. It's obvious that her character was the only one that was going to return for this sequel since she was the only survivor of the prom night massacre, but when getting casted for the film, Amy Irving asked for Brian De Palma's blessing, which he did give because both her and De Palma liked the original director of the project. But then, plot twist, the director was fired and they hired on a new one. And that story changed entirely. In a very recent interview from 2024, she said, "I'm sorry I ever made that film, except they paid me a shitload of money," which, fair. I'll never diss someone for admitting to taking that paycheck. And I don't hate Sue's inclusion in this film. In fact, I like her overall arc in it. Since the Prom Night Massacre and her involvement in the abuse of Carrie White, she has become a guidance counselor trying to make up for the guilt of what she did. She notices Rachel's early on signs of having the same abilities and tries to help her take control over her telekinetic powers, even taking her to the location of the original prom massacre and showing her what was left of the school gymnasium all these years later. And I enjoy all these bits, even that scene where they go to the original gymnasium. I think that's a really fun inclusion, even if it's kind of strange they didn't just tear what was left of it down. Even Roger Ebert commented on that in his review about how weird of a choice that is, but unlike him, I did enjoy seeing that and I thought it was a really fun little thing to just sprinkle in the movie. I really do enjoy all these parts where they call back to the original film, but where I cannot say I enjoy it is all the weird cuts of Sue having flashbacks to the original movie. They are extremely jarring and super clunky with this strange red tint over them, and it makes those scenes look tacky when they didn't look that way in the original film. I mean, they were filmed by De Palma, need I say more, and they just made them look bad in this entry with the way that they were used here as these like weird like flashbacks for Sue's trauma. It just wasn't a part of it that I liked. That's not the only part of the movie that has weird editing. There are a lot of strange editing choices in this because throughout the film, when Rachel is overcome by her blossoming powers, the screen starts to warp and becomes black and white. It's incredibly tacky looking, it's not a good effect, and overall, the scope of the film, I think there's way too much going on, so none of the characters feel all that fleshed out to me and are extremely surface level, which is a huge problem when the horror of your film is in the last 30 minutes. Give me something to be able to latch onto for that first 60, otherwise I'm just going to be checked out of your damn movie. I mean, just in this movie alone, you have Sue's trauma that I talked about, Rachel's conflict with her overly religious, insane mother, and her shitty foster parents to boot. Then we have the jocks who are playing the Fuck Girls for Points game, where they photograph and videotape the girls they sleep with. But one of the jocks is just such a good guy and actually likes Rachel, so obviously Jesse and Rachel fall in love with each other, and I could keep raising fingers on my hand because there is so many other little plot lines to this, but I digress on that. It's just a lot to follow in one movie, and I wish we'd had more focus on all these characters and gave them moments to truly shine, because that's why the original worked so well. There's a huge cast of characters in that original film, and if you watched my other videos in this series, you've heard me gush about them throughout each entry. The difference is those characters actually had stellar moments to stand out, whereas these ones feel like they're fighting for screen time amongst each other. Although, I'll admit and give credit where credit is due, many of the callbacks in this film do feel well written. and in place, especially after discovering this was originally a different film entirely rather than a Carrie sequel. It doesn't really feel like anything was just forced into the crypt, because I've seen many movies that forced their way into a franchise and it just did not work whatsoever. Hellraiser. This one does add in the whole Sue storyline, Rachel's father being Ralph, and then random silly little callbacks in the dialogue. Like, there's one scene that feels eerily similar to the pervy gym coach in the second Nightmare on Elm Street, with all the homoerotic subtext in tow, because in this entry, the gym teacher forces one of the football players to drop his pants in class and drops this golden line to his butt cheeks.
I just wanted to check to see if maybe you had a tampon string hanging between your legs.
Now, look me in the eye and tell me that wasn't a callback. A very strange one, but a callback nonetheless. The main thing that needs talked about, and it's what we come to these films for, is the final act, when we see the rage and revenge get taken out on our group of douchebag bullies. And I'd say this one delivers, even if some of the deaths feel extremely of the time. I'm looking at you, girl, getting filleted by a bunch of CDs, which admittedly a pretty awesome kill still, nonetheless. But in our final act, the jocks and popular girls get together and invite Rachel to a rager at one of their homes. What Rachel doesn't know is a couple nights earlier, when she was on a romantic date with Jesse and the two do the deed, his friends had hidden a camera and filmed the whole thing. They show this footage at the party to humiliate her and convince her that Jesse only slept with her to get some more points in their game. This obviously triggers her telekinesis as she finally comes undone on these asshats. It's very B-movie, but the whole scene is extremely fun, with only a few minor critiques from my end of things. We see a tattoo Rachel has of a thorn-covered heart stretching across her arm and around her body, and why does this happen, you may ask? Because it looks cool. Do they need any other reason? Because that's about the only reason that we get. But as Rachel inflicts this massacre, you have this really cool effect of the windows bursting behind Rachel that kills many of the partygoers. You also have a scene of her shattering this girl's glasses directly into her eyes, which causes that girl to shoot a harpoon gun into a guy's junk, effectively castrating him. The kills are mostly on point this entire sequence. The only one I have complaint about is how they finish off Sue in this. Her kill does look admittedly cool, but it's super lackluster for how quick it is. She rushes to the house to try and save Rachel. A fire poker is sent sailing through the door and impales her. For a kill, it's fun and the effects are pretty damn good, but that is not how you should kill off a legacy character, and I shouldn't be the one to have to say that, especially when that's the only one you have from your previous movie. It was extremely forced and unearned, and I have no problem bringing back characters from previous entries of the franchise and killing them. Yes, it sucks to see characters I like die, but if you can do it in a good way that works as a good send-off, then I'm all for it. This is horror after all. No one should be safe, otherwise where are the stakes? I just think this death could have been way more impactful, and they should have gone back to the writing board for a truly good kill for her that was actually memorable. And I've spent more time bitching about this death than they actually did showing it in the film. At the end of the scene, Jesse comes to save Rachel and sees the damage she has caused. Initially, Rachel thinks he was in on recording their moment together, but before she can kill him, the videotape of their first time is still playing in the background, and she hears Jesse say in the video, "I love you," while she was sleeping, and how sweet. Too bad I didn't really care much about their relationship this whole movie. After she discovers that Jesse had true feelings for her, a part of the ceiling comes crashing down, and she manages to throw Jesse out of the way, saving him but crushing her and leaving her to burn to death in the rubble of the mansion. Then, of course, because this is a horror movie, of course we need one last jump scare, and we see Jesse a year later going to university. He has a picture of Rachel on the mirror and has adopted her dog, which, side note, by the way, I have such a soft spot for basset hounds, and this dog is so damn cute the whole movie, and honestly, it's just such a good boy, so just remember that. Good dog actor in this film. But as Jesse's doing schoolwork, Rachel appears and the two share no words before jumping into a kiss when, oh no, Rachel shatters to pieces in one of the worst CGI effects, and we discover it was all just a bad dream. And as much as I love this genre, which obviously I think it goes without saying, I've revolved my entire channel around it, I hate when they force in these cheap jump scares that aren't even scary, especially with effects that bad. I genuinely want to know who actually gets scared by these terribly written endings. Like, I'm waiting, like, I'll list a number on the screen. Call that number if this scared you, I suppose. But alas, The Rage Carrie 2 roughly made $17 million in the box office on a budget of $21 million, which isn't a surprise to me that this movie flopped so hard because, again, this sequel came out 23 years later, and I genuinely don't believe anyone was aching for a follow-up to De Palma's film. I genuinely don't hate this movie. There was moments I liked, but overall, I just felt bored by the lackluster characters, which I've already explained ad nauseum. I need to be entertained by the characters in your cast if it's going to be so big, and if you're not giving me the horror until the final act, then the characters really do need to work. Otherwise, what is the audience here for if your characters aren't good and that's what you're having to watch is this character drama for the grand majority of your movie? Anyways, though, that's going to wrap up my thoughts on The Rage Carrie 2 and caps off my coverage on this franchise. You should let me know if it was a film you enjoyed or disliked in the comments right down below. And this might be my last entry in this series of videos for now, but for future Carrie news, there is currently a Mike Flanagan television series in production for Carrie that'll be streaming on Prime, which I imagine will come out sometime next year, give or take, and I'd be lying if I said I wasn't excited to see it, so I can tell y'all without a doubt that when that comes out, I'll be sure to cover it for you guys. But until then, if you're new here and haven't subscribed to the channel and you want more content in the future just like this, then I'd love to have you. I cover everything and anything horror on this channel. But with that all out of the way, this has been Justice, and I hope to see you guys on the next one. Take care.